Hello there, and welcome back to yet another Night of the Movies podcast. And in these podcasts, I talk all things movies and TV, and whatever I want, whenever I want. And in today's podcast, I'm reviewing what is said to be Michael Caine's final film, which is The Great Escaper. But before I do that, I should say what I say at the start of every podcast I do, which is, if you are watching this podcast on YouTube, hello to my viewers. But if you prefer to listen to your podcast on Spotify, well, you're in luck, because you can also listen to this podcast on Spotify at Night of the Movies on that platform. And if you are already listening to this podcast on Spotify, hello there to podcast listeners, then you can also check the podcast out visually on my YouTube channel at Night of the Movies on that platform as well. Likewise, wherever you may be watching or listening to this podcast, don't forget to like and subscribe if you enjoy the podcast, of course, and leave me some feedback on things to improve on in future podcasts, because there's always things to improve on, and feedback is, as ever, much appreciated. So, let's get into it. The Great Escaper. So this film is directed by Oliver Parker, who I didn't know before I saw the film. He has previously directed Johnny English Reborn, so that was the first of the Johnny English sequels, which I must admit, I don't care what anyone says, I really enjoy the Johnny English franchise. I'm not that big on the third Johnny English film. What was it called? Johnny English Strikes Again or something. Wasn't really that big on that one, but I actually really liked the first two Johnny English films. And Oliver Parker, who has directed The Great Escaper alongside Johnny English Reborn, has also directed the Dad's Army movie, which I must admit I wasn't really fond of, although I've also got to admit I'm one of the few people in the world who's not huge on the Dad's Army TV show. I don't dislike it or anything, I don't love it like some people do, and I didn't really like the film at all, for being completely honest. And Oliver Parker has also directed the 8 Trillion films, which I must admit I actually like. I remember watching them when I was a kid, and I haven't watched them in a very long time, but I remember enjoying them at least. And he also directed Swimming with Men, which, although I didn't think was a great film, I did really enjoy watching with Rob Brydon. Actually, I had a better time watching that film than I thought I was going to. And as already mentioned, he directed this film. And the main reason I was interested in this film, the main reason I was interested in The Great Escaper is because it's said to be Michael Caine's final film. I think he's come out and said now he's retiring after this film, and it's also meant to be Glenda Jackson's final film, and she is one of the co-leads in this film. And I must admit, Glenda Jackson is somebody I'm not overly familiar with. I don't really know her work, if I'm being completely honest. But as for Michael Caine, he's someone I remember seeing in films ever since I can remember. I remember watching him in films like The Italian Job and the Dark Knight trilogy. 2 very different films, film franchise, should I say, because the Dark Knight trilogy is 3 films, but I remember watching him in those kind of films ever since I was young, and he's someone, whenever he pops up in something, even if it's bad, I will enjoy seeing him in it. He was one of the reasons I was interested in seeing this film, and I also saw the trailers for this film at the cinema. I can't remember when I saw the trailers for this film. It might have been when I went to go and see The Lesson. Yeah, it might have been when I went to go and see that. I remember seeing the trailer for this film and thinking, if this is Michael Caine's final film, and I do think there's a bit of an if there, because I'm pretty sure a couple of years ago he said he was retiring, then he did this film. So I don't know if this is actually going to be his definitive final film, but as of now, it is his final film, and I was watching the trailer for this film in the cinema and thinking, if this is going to be Michael Caine's final film, it looks like a good one to bow out on. And I must admit, I didn't know the true story that this film was based on. And according to Google, the plot synopsis of the film goes as follows. In the summer of 2014, a World War II veteran sneaks out of his care home to attend the 70th anniversary commemoration of the D-Day landings in Normandy. And that's pretty much all you need to know about the film. I mean, there's a lot more to it than that, obviously. That's just scratching the surface of what this film's really about. But that's all you need to know. Someone sneaks out of their care home, an old World War II veteran sneaks out of their care home to go to the commemoration of the D-Day landings in Normandy. At the 70th anniversary commemoration, should I say, of the D-Day landings in Normandy. And I really wanted this film to be good, because it is said to be Michael Caine's final film. And I want this to be a triumphant last outing for him, a triumphant final film for him. And you know what? it is. This is a really strong film. I was surprised by how much it caught me off guard, because I must admit, when I saw the trailers for this film in the cinema, I didn't know whether it was going to be my sort of film. And then, about half an hour into the film, I realised that I was completely taken by it, and I found it so compelling and then so powerful. And even though it is one of those films you watch with your parents or your grandparents on a Sunday afternoon, and even though it does get a bit too sentimental, and even so some of the B plot lines, some of the subplots didn't totally work for me, and even so it didn't grab me straight away like I would have liked it to, I didn't really care in the long run about all that stuff, because I ended up getting quite attached to these characters. I ended up really caring about the story and getting invested in the story, and I found it funny at times, and I also found it really emotional. It's a very emotive film, and it works in being emotive, you know. It is a touching film, it is moving, and I really liked the central love story between Michael Caine's character and Glenda Jackson's character. You know, I really like how that was dealt with in the film. There was this approach from the filmmakers behind this film, and well, I suppose Oliver Parker, the director as well, where it just feels like they're taking so much time with that love story. Nothing in the film felt rushed there, and I like how they also balanced it with flashbacks of their relationship, seeing those two characters meet and seeing them fall in love during the early 1940s. I'm guessing, seeing how that is intertwined into the film and seeing the parallels, I think, are done really well and add to the emotion in the film. And I also think it's beautifully shot. It's one of those films where the cinematography really caught me off guard, to the point that I was watching certain scenes going, wow, I mean, this is far better seeing this in the cinema than I thought it was going to be. I thought it was going to be one of those films I go to cinema to see, but I don't really feel like I'd need to go to cinema to see. I'm so happy I went to cinema to see this, because there are a couple of flashback sequences as well that take place in battles during World War II, or more specifically, that take place, they're meant to be flashbacks of D-Day, I'm assuming. Yeah, they're meant to be flashbacks of D-Day, and the sound mix in there actually works really well. It's like sound mixing at the start of Saving Private Ryan. I mean, the D-Day sequence wasn't nearly as good as the Saving Private Ryan opening sequence, which takes place on D-Day, but it's a very different kind of D-Day sequence. It's a very different kind of D-Day sequence, and I liked the way it was done. And seeing it in the cinema, I actually really enjoyed that. I really enjoyed watching it in the cinema, and the way it's shot was, yeah, really fantastic, and it really built on the atmosphere and the feel of the film. There's so many shots that when I'm thinking about this film, they're like sunrise or sunset shots, and I think they're really done well though. And yeah, it's a beautifully shot film. I know a lot of people might not care about that, but it surprised me by how gorgeous this film was to look at, you know. And I also really like the musical score by Craig Armstrong, who most notably for me did the musical score for Love Actually. And I was thinking at one point in the film, when the musical score started to elevate more and started to become more evident and more notable, I started to think, is this Craig Armstrong? Because it's sounding very similar to the musical score for Love Actually. You know, when the kid's running through the airplane towards in that film. It sounded a bit similar to that, and then it did say in the end credits, original music by Craig Armstrong. I was like, of course it is. And he does a good job with the musical score for this film. He adds to the sentimentality of it, which I actually liked. Some people might say this film is a bit over-sentimental, and I can completely see why. And I will say, there was a couple of moments towards the end where like, is it going to end here? Oh no, we're having another quite emotional scene. Or is it going to end here? Oh no, we're having quite another emotional scene. But again, in the long run, that didn't really bother me too much. I mean, yeah, it's a bit overly sentimental, but you kind of expect that from a film like this. At least I did. And yeah, it is a film that you would watch with your grandparents or your parents on a Sunday afternoon about 3 o'clock, and you'd stick on, and, you know, it's one of those films which you won't really have much expectations for. And I must admit, I didn't really have much high expectations for, But even though it's one of those films you'd watch your grandparents or parents on a Sunday afternoon, it's a really great film that we'd watch your grandparents or parents on a Sunday afternoon. You know what I mean? It's not just one of those films to stick on in the background whilst doing something else. It's a film that you would stick on and you wouldn't. I mean, it's a film that I really think people would stick on a Sunday afternoon, and everybody would get something out of it. You know, it's one of those films where it is funny in parts. You know, you got some of that Michael Caine. What was I trying to say there? The Michael Caine. It's got some of that Michael Caine humor in there. That's what I'm trying to say. Some of that Michael Caine humor, and the relationship between the main two characters is the beating heart of the film, and it shines throughout its runtime. It's not a long film either. I think it's like 1 hour 40 minutes, and it really just flew by. And yeah, I really liked it far more than I was expecting to, because I went into this thinking it's gonna be just another Sunday afternoon film that I'll like but probably forget about in a month's time. This is a strong Sunday afternoon film. It really is, even to the point that, yeah, I would definitely recommend people watching it. I mean, maybe not in cinemas, because I'm reviewing this about a week after it's come out in cinemas, because I was busy last week. I was in London because of the BFI stuff, and I was at some premieres, which was great. So I didn't get to watch this on the day it came out, and I would have, because I really wanted to see this film. And I don't know if it's going to be in cinemas still. If I'm being honest, I don't think it will be, or if it is in cinemas, the screenings I reckon will be limited right now. And so I would recommend people check this out on streaming, or even on DVD, if you still buy DVDs. I don't know how many people do. I still buy DVDs. But if you don't buy DVDs, check this out on streaming, because I really do think you'll get something out of it. Or maybe it'd be one of those films on Film 4, or I don't know, be shown on BBC 1 or BBC 2 at some point. And yeah, if it is, make note of it, because I really think it is a worthwhile watch, especially if it is Michael Caine's final film, because it's a great film to bow out on. And one other thing I want to mention is I really loved how this film dealt and approached with all this D-Day commemoration stuff, how it dealt with all that. And there's a scene in the film with Michael Caine's character and other old war veterans from World War II, some of different nationalities. And I really like how authentic and how real that scene felt. Even though it was actors just doing a scene, I loved how real that scene felt. You know, I was watching this feeling like, you know, this was actually happening. You know what I mean? Hopefully you do. Anyway, you get the point. I think this is a great film. I really think it's great. The more I think about it, the more I like it. It's not going to be to everyone's taste, as any film is, you know. I can see why some people wouldn't gel with this film, but personally, I did think it was a great final triumph for Michael Caine, if this is, again, indeed his last film. And if it is, well, in my opinion, he's gone out with a bang. And so, all in all, I'm going to say that The Great Escaper, I'm going to say that it's I almost forgot the rating I put down there. I'm going to say it's an 8.5 out of 10. Again, I just want to reiterate, this is a solid film. And the title as well works well and is incorporated very well into the film. I did find it powerful, more powerful than I thought it was going to. I really thought I was going to care more about Michael Caine's character going off to these D-Day commemorations than the love story, because I did see in the trailers that love story was going to be central to the film, and in the end, I think I actually cared more about the love story, which is saying something. I really didn't think I would. Yeah, I think it's really good, and I think it's Oliver Parker's best film, and that's saying something, because some of the films I listed before, I mean, I didn't like the Dad's Army movie whatsoever, but say well about these other films, like the St. Trillium films he directed, and the St. Trillium films he co-directed, should I say, and Johnny English Reborn and Swimming with Men. I know not everybody loves or even likes those films, but the thing is, I do. I'm actually someone who really enjoys the first two Johnny English films. I have so many fond memories watching them as a kid. And Swimming with Men, I only watched for the first time a couple of years ago, and I actually really liked that film. So even though I'm somebody who actually quite enjoys Oliver Parker's work, the ones I've mentioned anyway, even though I quite enjoyed some of the films that I've mentioned from him earlier, I think this is his best film. Because, I don't know, I know why I think it's his best film. It's because I actually felt an emotional attachment to it, and I got invested into it, and all that jazz I've already mentioned. I really do think it is worth a watch. Yeah, I really do think it is, and I think it's one of those films which will catch you by surprise as well. Yeah. I really, really, really liked it. And I've just realised I've been going on about this film for 15 minutes. I really didn't think I was going to. So I'm going to round things off by saying this. As what he said, The Great Escaper is a really great film in my opinion. And it's a final triumph for Michael Caine. And that is why, as I've already said, that is why I'm going to give The Great Escaper an 8.5 out of 10 from me. Anyway guys, that's it for the podcast for today. If you have seen The Great Escaper, then please let me know your thoughts on the film in the comment section below. And if you haven't seen it yet, again, I would definitely recommend it. I would definitely recommend it if you can go and see it in cinemas. But if it's not in cinemas, check it out when it comes out in streaming. I do think it'll be worth a watch. I really think people are going to like it. Anyway, yes, as already said, this is it for me for the podcast today. And thank you as always for watching or listening to this podcast. And if you haven't yet, please do click down below and like, subscribe on this podcast. And look forward to many more podcasts coming very, very soon on this channel. As already said, thank you as always for watching or listening, and I will see you guys again soon, but bye for now. Bye.